He clocked in at midnight and vanished before dawn. Years later, the warehouse meter log shows the same minute written twice. 2 hands, 2 pressures, like a heartbeat recorded wrong on purpose. A forklift's black box coughs awake, a broken pencil tip sits where it shouldn't, and a clean copy of the maintenance sheet promises mercy that paper can't deliver. The meter book. The meter book lived in a steel cabinet that remembered every night shift. You could tell by the gouges near the hasp, the kind you get when a tired hand misses the keyhole by a fraction, again and again. The pages smelled like dust and citrus degreaser. On one of them, right margin, 2 times occupied the same minute. 3:26 in a heavy hand that bruised the paper fibers, and 3:26 in a lighter, school-proud script that pretended to be helpful. The name beside both was the same: Dante Ruiz. Dante ran nights at Pier 5 in 2009, when the import warehouse felt like a lung. Doors opened, air rushed, pallets moved, doors closed. At 3:12, a camera saw him walk past Bay 7 with a clipboard tucked under his arm, the way men carry proof they'll need later. At 4 a.m., another camera found nothing at all but a forklift blinking like a lost animal. The meter book recorded that the south compressor cycled at 3:26. Normal draw. Signed DR. Dante never came home. The new operations manager handed me a photocopy of the log and called it the record. The copy had no indentations. The pencil pressure had been smoothed into one even tone by a machine that does not understand the difference between fear and neatness. I asked for the original. He said we maintain a clean set for audits, that the old pages were archived. When I asked where, he said, in practice, not in place. So I went to the night floor and walked from Bay 1 to 12 with a soft pencil and a sheet of thin tracing paper. Near Bay 9, the concrete remembered something. A spur of graphite stuck in a crack, the small bright triangle of a pencil tip that snaps when someone writes too hard. I picked it up with tweezers and dropped it into a bag like a seed. At the steel cabinet, a new hasp was installed slightly off-angle. Bright washers around the screws made a halo where there wasn't one last year. The key turned soft, as if the lock were tired of making choices. When the lid opened, the book rasped like a throat clearing. I placed tracing paper over the 3:26 line and shaded with the pencil sideways. Pressure wakes ghosts. 2 signatures appeared like bruises surfacing. A deep one, letters narrow and fast. A faint one, letters wider, as if coached. Between them, a hesitation mark. A dot no one intended sat above the 2. The deep hand had stopped there and thought before writing the 6. The coached hand had not. The forklift black box doesn't care about clean copies. Its memory was under a flap behind the operator's right calf, a gray module with a plastic clip that always breaks if you twist it wrong. Julius, the oldest mechanic in the shop, slid it free and handed it to me like he was giving me back a word I had lost. We dumped the data into a laptop older than the forklift. The file read like weather, bursts and lulls, spikes and plateaus. At 3:24:50, the mast rose. At 3:25:32, tilt forward. At 3:26:7, a sudden break and a beep the software labeled obstruction. After that, the forklift idled in place for 9 minutes with the seat sensor unweighted, the way a dog sits outside a door it cannot open. Could be nothing, Julius said. Could be a pallet. Could be a minute that needed company, I said. The meter book's second hand, the one that wrote lightly, had initialed other places. Not many. A maintenance sheet for the south compressor, an extra box checked, pressure within tolerance. A safety briefing sign-in with a neat DR in a column of messier initials. I walked the columns back to the photocopier. The edges were sharper on the newer papers, the tone flat, but on the originals, faint ridges rose where ballpoints dragged and stumbled. Only one hand did not stumble. Only one hand seemed to write with the page in mind instead of the person. We found the man who taught that hand in a guard shack that had learned to be a break room. His name was Benton. He wasn't a supervisor, not exactly. He was the one who kept things straight. He smoked but didn't smell like it, a trick that made me distrust him. "We keep fair copies," he said, like he was explaining seat belts to a child. "Because auditors want the story to read the same no matter who wrote it. People get tired. They mark the wrong minute. We tidy, so the company doesn't bleed over commas." "What about people who bleed?" I asked. He looked at my pencil. "We don't change the outcome," he said. "We make the page hold." The camera by Bay 7 was the only one that had not been replaced. Its timestamp ran a minute slow, a thing you only notice when you care about minutes. At 3:26 by the meter book, the camera showed 3:25. Dante's shadow moved past the forklift's forks, then stopped. A figure stepped into frame from the blind corner, high-vis vest, hood up, a gait that said hurry without running, the face blurred where faces blur. Two bodies lifted the pallet together like men in a hurry. The forklift beeped its complaint. Somewhere the compressor cycled, normal draw. On the page, the heavy hand wrote the minute it was living. Later, the light hand returned to make sure the book agreed. Lena, Dante's sister, met me at a chain-link gate that had long since stopped pretending to keep things out. She had kept his locker key on a string, part talisman, part failure to move on. We sat on a pallet and I showed her the tracing. "This looks like he wrote it," she said, touching the darker groove without actually touching. "And this looks like a teacher correcting a child." I told her about the black box and the idle minute, and the way the book carries two hands arguing on the same line. I told her the company had a clean copy, but that clean isn't the same thing as true. She didn't cry. People who live near water or iron or money learn to ration their tears. "I want to know if he was alone," she said. "I don't need a guilty man. I need a second body in the room." At the safety meeting a week later, the manager read from a printed card. New policy. Original meter logs would be sealed in clear bags with sign-out labels. Fair copies would be watermarked training, not record. Any corrections would carry initials and time added, not time replaced. It sounded like a prayer someone had stapled to paper. Benton wasn't there. Julius was. He slipped me a bag with something that rattled like a small truth. Inside, a pencil body with no tip, cracked at a 30-degree angle. Yellow paint flaked where a thumbnail had worried at it. "Found it in the drain behind Bay 9, he said. "Been there a while." On the way out, I stopped by the cabinet one last time. The hasp's bright washers had dulled. The book surface had picked up a new scuff where a hand had missed and apologized without meaning to. I wrote a note in my own notebook, the way a person leaves a ladder down after climbing. Pressure reveals. Clean copies calm. Minutes don't forgive you for thinking they're elastic. The river out beyond the containers kept making its small, ordinary noises. Somewhere, a crane coughed. Somewhere, a clock learned a new minute. Dante's line on the meter book still held two hands. They don't cancel each other. They make a chord that tells you how the place wants to sound. It's not a hymn. It's not an accusation. It's the noise you hear when someone teaches paper to carry weight it wasn't meant to carry, and the paper, being paper, carries it anyway, until someone shades a thin sheet over the truth and lets the groove rise where anyone can see it.